everybody, I'm Rhinocio. It's sunny, it's warm, I've started my plants. Look at them, aren't they these little babies? I'm wearing a snuggle sweater. Boing, boing. And I got something exciting for you today. It's another sketchbook tour.
I've decided this little paint splotch is going to be the middle of my canvas. Wonderful.
Wonderful. So, new sketchbook. It's been 84 years. Gonna start off with this lovely sticker spread. Most of these stickers came off of Redbubble, I think. A couple of them came from a convention in Toronto that I went to 2 years ago. Unfortunately, I did not think to keep track of who made what. So if you know who made these art pieces, please let me know. I would like to be able to credit people. So although I've labeled this as being from 2018 through to this month, that's not entirely accurate. Because my intention was to completely fill and completely more or less finish everything in here, a lot of these things were drawn before this year, but were only finished just recently because I was trying to wrap this whole thing up. So I would say more or less the stuff in here was finished at the end of 2020 or thereabouts. This was in fact the first page that I did. I was bold. I went through, like I know a lot of other people's sketchbooks won't do, where I did my first page first, just slapped it on there like, yes, look, it is crap and I'm happy with it. Like, I was really trying to play around with just like doing funny expressions and getting some character design stuff in. Most of the big drawings on this page were already in there, and then I added small ones afterward. This drawing is of my buddy's D&D character, Album Curcubita, who's this really crazy wizard character who likes to put everything in his mouth. He's a scientist technically, but he just tests everything by eating it. Also, these stickers are over a decade old. I peeled them off the note cards from my original piano teacher when I was like 10 years old and stuck them in here because I liked them. For the first few pages of the sketchbook, I had no idea what I was doing. I was kind of just sketching. I was just throwing stuff out there, which is not my normal style. Usually I'll do a single page thing and fill it up and be like, look, it's complete and finished and I'm very happy with it. And not so much this time. We've got some shit posts. We got some art. This one's off Redbubble. This was another artist at the Toronto convention. Please someone help me. As were these, which I should have got more of them. They were so fun. This was a layout for a comic that I never ended up doing. It's going to be a Talkits one. It's going to be very cute, but And these sketches are from when V and I were traveling. We did a road trip across half of the States and half of Canada in order to bring her here to live. And there were a lot of events along the way. We have a scrapbook, but I wanted to do little sort of comic-y shitposts to put into it. I never got around to that, but someday! This is probably the page that I'm least happy with. These big lions in particular, I thought maybe I would start playing with some new mediums and I would just sketch stuff out with no references and no baseline and just see what I could make. And it bled through the other page and I was very unhappy with that. We got some scribbly bits that kind of annoy me. I don't like my pages to look as sketchy probably as sketchbooks are supposed to. Although I do sort of enjoy the sketches that ended up around the outside. For a while when I was younger, I cut a lot of things out of the newspaper and was hanging on to them, so I picked out some of my favorite things from that made me laugh and popped them in there too. I'm getting used to the idea of using a sketchbook as also sort of a scrapbook. It's extremely fun, would recommend. So because that page had all that inky stuff on the back that was really annoying me, I ended up putting this picture here, which was, I don't know, from a magazine from years ago, but it looked like a couple of OCs of mine when I was a kid. And then this very inspirational thing from Justin McElroy. Love that boy. I did end up sealing a lot of my pencil drawings that I never felt like going over with glue, which was mostly good, except you really want to make sure you've got everything clean before you glue it down, because then you're never going to be able to erase that. It's just going to be messy perpetually. Oops. You will also see with the sketchbook that thematically, I kind of go through phases. There was a lot of Voltron at the beginning, and then a lot of Taz Balance, a lot of Taz Amnesty, and then a little bit of Lord of the Rings at the end. And it was only about halfway through the sketchbook that I thought, oh, maybe I should draw on the other side too. So this is a newer drawing. This one's real old. This one's probably more in the 2018 era, whereas this one was done just at the end of last year. It was also done with those watercolor crayon things that I have, which are really chalky and not a great texture. I'm not a huge fan of them, but I'm trying to just use them up. Anyway, all your faves are trans. Just putting that out there. Look at the confetti. They did so good. Yay. Here's where I started. It was the first time that I'd read The Fic Comes Around Again and then got into Sansu, which are kind of both just required reading in the Lord of the Rings fandom. And so I went on a little bender of trying to draw Lord of the Rings characters, which it was short-lived initially. By the time I got to the back of the book, that's when I got B into the fandom too, and then, so we were both in on it. That's a little self-portrait, which I don't do a lot of. This was a really cute barista at the place next to where I used to work. This is the most recent one that I technically finished. I just slapped a bunch of colors and stuff on there. When I was initially drawing it, it was going to be a scene from a fic that I was writing, but I never got around to it, and looking at it now, I'm like, ooh, that anatomy's got some issues. His arm's far too long, his face is a little weird, don't know what's happening with the neck and shoulder here. There's some good parts about it. I like the flow, I like the hand, not that you can tell anymore that I've inked over it, but it had some potential. Overall, not my fave though. This was my first foray into comics. Oh no, sticker, please, go back down. A friend of mine keeps sending me stickers in the mail. We are kind of pen pals, and it's adorable, and I love them, and I keep them in my sketchbook. But yeah, so you'll see a big progression in how I do comics through these books. They're mostly all Taz comics, I'm pretty sure. This one, I hadn't started playing with line weight yet, so everything's just kind of, all the lines are the same size and shape. I was still using whiteout to block up areas that I'd messed up and wanted to fix. The actual layout of the thing is very confusing and hard to follow. It's just not very visually interesting to look at. This is one of those pages where I've got kind of a variety of things going on. This was a very early sketch. It was a cosplay that I kind of ended up making and wearing to the convention in Toronto. Can't say it turned out as I kind of hoped. It was a little goofy looking. I felt a little silly, but technically I did make it. This was Lord of the Rings having some moments the first time when I read Comes Around Again, and that scene destroyed me. This was later on when I was getting into Amnesty, and then this was me super backtracking by the time I was working on the end of the book, because I was like, wait, I need to make some shitposts for What Song Can Fell the Mountain, which is this giant epic fic that B and I have made together, and I've been putting little shitposts at the end of each chapter, and so this is one that actually hasn't aired yet, but it will be there. The problem with a lot of these comics is that they have no context outside of the fic, so they're not really funny to just like flip through and be like, I don't know, it's some characters doing some stuff. Here's definitely one of the later comics. This was, I think, probably the second one that I did in this sketchbook, and I had, like I noted here, more, there was going to be another chunk to it, but I just never got around to drawing it, so it exists in stasis by itself like this, and it's not that interesting. By this point, I was starting to do more planned out comics. I was trying to make the speech bubbles easier to follow, trying to make it more dynamic to look at, trying to use different framing devices for how characters were posed, and definitely sort of getting into the line weight stuff here. I'm still really happy with Taco's braid. Please ignore the whiteout. This is the character Amazon from the D&D game that I'm playing with friends. Amazon is essentially our fantasy Costco Garfield. Amazon runs the interconnected transplanar spiderwebs, where they give us goods from across the world, and I guess universes and planes. I think most of these objects our DM actually made up, and they were extremely funny. Like the sheet of visibility, where you throw it over someone and then you can see where they're at. The miniature bunk bed that you can throw at your enemies to cause damage. Our DM actually made a whole bunch of playing cards, effectively, for a lot of these items, and they are extremely good. I love them so much. They made us all laugh, and I have one permanently stuck up on the corkboard in our little, foyer. This is some hot takes on Taco with maybe some curly hair. I really like this one in particular. I think it looks really cute, the short hair. Taco and Lucy over here, and then Legolas and Gimli. And Gimli, I don't think you can see it, but the beads in his hair actually are done with like a shiny gel pen, so there is a little sparkle in there. Same with Legolas's earring. This was another one of those variety pages where I was just kind of sketching stuff. I'm happier with some than with others. This Aloy I liked a lot better before I inked and colored her. Still like the little toothless. I was really inspired watching a lot of Momo O'Brien's videos and tried making up a non-binary sort of dwarven or half-dwarven character. Never came... I was going to fill in their name here though, and I never actually came up with a name. This was somebody walking down the street. I saw their outfit, loved it, immediately needed to draw it, threw myself on the nearest bench and sketched out Taco wearing it. This is a character from another D&D game I was playing with my coworkers. We were playing through... I forget the name, it's that really spooky one with the vampire guy. This character is Erixar or Sidmardian, or Sid. He's sort of like an old grumpy dwarven character who's a warlock. This is Taco saying a line from a Fringe Festival show we went to see. It was a parody of Jaws. It was a 3-person show with puppets. It was hilarious. We had a couple of friends over, and we all tried to draw some kind of goat girl, and we got a big variation. There was like a Desu cutesy one, there was a really intense sort of edgy one, and then there was my cryptid looking thing. This was a lady I saw down at the waterfront who was playing with a bass guitar, and she was awesome, and she was wearing board shorts, and just 100 out of 10, beautiful. This poem is actually longer. I've held on to this little cutting of it forever though, because I thought these 2 lines were very poignant. Come on. Again, sort of a variety of sketches, although these are all of the same theme. I've got kind of a more realistic style going on here with Dragon Angus. That was, I guess, a popular theory in the Taz Balance fandom for a while before Endgame, but I still really like it. I like the idea that Angus is some kind of silver dragon, but also, like, I kind of like the idea of him being silver in that, like, the details of his body are silver, the fins and the wings and that, but then the rest of him is still dark. I think that's kind of fun. And then this was me trying to emulate another Taz artist style that I quite liked. It's a lot boxier. The Taco was more or less just copied based on what I was seeing. The Angus I kind of tried to freeform. Not sure I quite got a grasp on their style, but I tried. This one I was so proud of when I started drawing it back in the summer of 2018 or 19, and then I only just recently finished inking it, and now I'm seeing a lot of things that I would fix. But I still think the premise is cute. It's Loop and Barry hanging out with Angus and Mavis and Mookie. These are all characters from The Adventure Zone Balance, which is a podcast, which I probably should have mentioned earlier on. I just kind of was under the assumption. Anyway, I do a lot of art for these characters anyway, so I figured that... Anyway, if you see an elf, chances are it's either Lord of the Rings or Taz. I decided to paste in some of the things that I had colored digitally on top of the traditional versions that I'd kept in the sketchbook. And it's kind of fun to see how they can be interpreted differently based on the mediums that I had. Obviously, I'm not as confident with my color coding using colored pencils or any traditional medium, really. I can't undo like that, you know? This was my first attempt at doing designs for the Taz Amnesty cast. My duck has changed considerably. This still makes me laugh, though. I doodled it while I was in the cafe where I was coloring this up and was sitting by myself and just laughed for 20 minutes. Texted B, was still laughing. Maybe she chuckled, but I was the only person I think who was really entertained. This is a sticker by a friend of mine, phenomenal artist, 100 out of 10, would recommend checking out their work. This page has a lot of really fun sketches on it too. This comic I was pretty happy with, although if you look at the digital version, a lot of things have been switched around. I totally mirrored this speech bubble to make it fit better. I changed the orientation of a lot of stuff. This is probably still the nicest speech bubble I've ever made. And then these 3 are, again, Angus, Mavis, and Mookie from Taz Balance, who are like especially these 2 are very minor characters. But I had this idea for a fic that it's kind of a sequel to a fic that's already in progress and has been in progress since 2018. Anyway, I technically did make some cover art for it, although by the time I get around to actually finishing the fic and posting it, I probably won't want to use this because it's already a little bit dated. Mavis's face is a little weird. Although I do like the detailing in here and how the line work kind of made it all look fairly 3D. Again, this is a comic when I was starting to get a little more comfortable with comics. I think this must have been an earlier one because there's not a lot of line width going on. Little disappointed with the markers that I put on the background here. The digital version is better, but the markers I ended up using were a very similar tone, so it kind of blotched out this area. Technically, the comic reads down and then over. I was just using up space. This drawing here, I'm actually quite proud of, although it didn't get a lot of attention online because not everyone is as gung-ho about these 2 characters interacting positively as I am. Folks like their wump. I think I picked out intentional autumny flowers for this too, though I don't remember what they were now. I think there's some juniper berries are one of them. And the digital coloring version I did all in sort of a monochrome, which I was pretty happy with. I mean, looking at it now, there's not a lot of depth to it. I think I was using a lot of, like, airbrush shading, which is not great, but whatever, it gave me the vibes I wanted. This comic here surprised me. Unlike the other comics that I have in this book, I didn't plan this one out. It was literally just me thinking about like the woes of having curly hair and wanting to see these characters interacting about it. And so I was making it up as I went along, which is why it's kind of all over the place. But then when I reoriented it and put it online, it kind of exploded, which is very cool. I'm glad people enjoyed it and got a laugh out of it. But it really did catch me off guard because I think of any of the comics that I've made, this is the one that's been the most popular. And it was also the one I tried the least hard on. I'm still very fond of this Taco and Kravitz one though. I think it's very soft. And I like the overalls. I like the 2 different textures that I did here. I'm a little disappointed with it was supposed to be white in his cloak, but it turned out kind of greenish because I inked and then tried to do the white over top. Oops. Pretend there's a photo over this one too because I forgot to print it out. This was extremely fun. When I went to Fan Expo in Toronto a couple years back, I ended up playing this game of Find the Taz cosplayers. Because it's a podcast, there's no preset designs for any of the characters, so there's a lot of different interpretations you're going to run into. And so during the convention, anytime I saw somebody who was cosplaying from Taz, I was pretty sure I would run up and ask them and then get their photo. And then I went through and actually drew sort of my versions of the character wearing the costumes that these people were wearing, which was a lot of fun. And I have actually a bunch more photos of cosplayers that were there, including a couple that dressed up as Angus and the Voidfish, which was pretty cool. There was probably more Amnesty cosplayers too, but this Aubrey was the only one that I ran into because I wasn't super into Amnesty at the time, which is crazy because now it's like one of my favorites. Anyway, these 2 were, I'm pretty sure, cosplaying from Taz, but I was only passing them in the hallway, so I didn't really get a chance to ask them. In any case, if you see yourself or if you know who any of these people are, please let me know. I would like to be able to like reference them. Just be like, hey, you were super cool and fun to draw, and I hope this is all right. Actually, I would have asked, but oops. Anyway, this person was very sweet. We chatted for a little bit. Loved the outfit. Love that fanny pack. It was excellent. Top tier. And again with the comics, this one I'm pretty happy with the bottom panel, at least. Like, the anatomy here is a little bit weird. Weight distribution is a little bit weird on this side, but I like the sort of the pose, the way the 2 characters are facing each other. I like the ridiculous vibes of this one. This one is more recent. I was getting a little bit lazy with doing all of the ink shading and hatching and stuff because it's really time consuming, guys. It's really time consuming. One of these comics would take me anywhere from 5 to 20 hours to finish. It's a lot. It was a lot of work. Whereas when I did a simple thing of inking and then slapped on some markers, it was, 3 hours maybe. It doesn't look as nice. It's a little bolder, which is cool, but they were harder to edit digitally and a little messier and not quite as refined. So I'd say even though these ones are quicker to do, I like the style of these ones better. This one I'd say, actually both of these are probably some of my favorite comics, despite what I was saying about the ink thing. This one I just really like the layout. I like how it's kind of like open concept comic design. I like it's kind of weird anatomy, but it still kind of works with Taco here. I like that they kind of look like twinsies, because that's always tricky, right? Is like getting twin characters to look like twins. This one was extremely funny. I don't know what inspired it, but I had a lot of fun. I don't know why Loop is so excited, but I get a big kick out of the idea that she just comes in and is like, mwah, 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 I love you so much. Hey, good to see you. And then just chucks her brother and runs for the next person. I think my favorite part about comics is doing little goofy stuff like this in the background. Even though I draw so friggin' small that it makes it really, really, really hard to do all the details and get them right. It's like one line wrong and the whole thing looks stupid. Oh, it's finicky. I gotta stop doing this to myself. Why do I keep buying tiny sketchbooks? This is actually an older comic. It was one of the first in here. This was a scene from Comes Around Again, although it's a little bit truncated because I had to get it all to fit in one page. And even though there's a lot of textures going on, especially with Thor in here, I'm still pretty happy with it. This was my first time doing a black sky background, and I really like how punchy it made the scenery in that top panel. This was the first drawing I'd really done with those pastel watercolory things, and I've gotten a lot of compliments on it, which is super nice. There are definitely bits about it that I'm pretty happy with. I think the speech bubble's kind of fun. Taco looks generally pretty good. This hand's pretty decent. And I like the gradient in the braid. That's also kind of fun. I don't know what's happening with the patch here, although the wand's pretty good. And I got friendship bracelets because reasons. Barry's face I'm torn about because on one hand at the time I was pretty happy with it, and now looking at it I'm like, he kind of looks like a monkey. Because of that weird texture to the watercolor crayons, it's kind of, I had to go over all the lines again. It was really like gritty, and it has this like, it's really yucky texture. This is another drawing that has exploded when it was just something I was slapping together without thinking about too hard. This is Duck and Minerva from Taz Amnesty. Mostly I just wanted to play with a black and white image that had big gold pops. I was thinking about the King and Lionheart song by whoever that's by, and just kind of went nuts. Zweihanders are very difficult to draw at this angle, as are hands. Clearly this is not a great hand. But like, I'm pretty happy with the textures of their shirts especially. I like the crown, how that turned out. I think it's a lot of fun. I was just very surprised again at like how that one kind of exploded in popularity. This is another little shitpost page. It's all Duck Nerva stuff because I have one thing I'm really into. I love the cuddling. Minerva gets really obscured in the colored version, but that's okay because I wanted to mostly emphasize the lighting, and I have the traditional version where you can see. Plus her arm didn't turn out great. There's something weird with the shoulder here that I couldn't figure out. These were joke comics. I haven't posted them anywhere because I had intentions to do a third part. They were all supposed to be comics about what happened with these characters in the Amazon, and because I have not drawn the third part, I have not posted them anywhere. This was me attempting to draw some kisses. They are extremely hard to draw. I've had more practice since, but whoa boy, at the time I was struggling. Pretty happy with Duck in this one. I feel like the back turned out okay, even though the lines might be too defined. I like the face and the angle of it. That turned out pretty good. I like the water effect. I like the hands in this one. This was right about when I was discovering my new favorite markers, especially this really light tone one, because it's just enough to like shade things and make them seem a little bit deeper without being as obnoxious as the background color. These are little bits off the envelopes that my friend Tonka has been sending me. I really like the dinosaurs, so I cut them out and stuck them in there. These are more Taz Amnesty characters doing wrestling. I'm pretty happy with the layout of this page, and I think mostly because I kept with the same color scheme for everything. This was a prompt from the Duck Nerva Discord. We were talking about weddings, and I got thinking about barefoot hipster flower crown weddings for whatever reason. So I had a lot of fun drawing in little flowers. This is Duck and Minerva, but as baboos. I got on a kick about drawing Madeline and Barclay as a thing, which again was the Duck Nerva Discord is we'll ship anything. You know, someone joked once that it's like 2 cakes, why not a whole bakery? We'll just get into anything and encourage each other to play with it. So that happened. This is supposed to be Loop. It didn't turn out quite like I'd hoped. I ended up using paint for the background and for the hair, but then the body, the silver is paint, but the black is actually permanent marker, which was slapped over top of a glue base so that it wouldn't seep through the other side. I don't really know if I like that. I think the concept was cool and the sketch was pretty cool. I don't particularly care for the execution. There's not a lot of depth to the color, but I do like that it's shiny. That's kind of fun. This is where I started getting into more Lord of the Rings stuff. These are a couple more, well, this one was a planned out shitpost. These ones were me just playing with the Valar characters, which are sort of the gods of the Lord of the Rings world. This is Toriel and Keely, who I was kind of ambivalent about. Was never into Lord of the Rings before, you know, the movies came out. So I wasn't one of those people who was like, who is this made up OC character? Hit her! I actually thought she was kind of fun. I feel like she could use more development in that the story was taken so seriously about like, we're immediately in love, when it would have been funnier if they were just both disaster children. So anyway, in what song I may have taken them in that direction. This was me playing around with the Posca pens that a friend of mine gave me. This is my, not D&D, but other tabletop role-playing game character, Problem Cow. Her name's Willow Walker, and she's a baby and also a huge problem causer. I found a lot of my characters, as much as I was trying to be different about them, I know a lot of people say that when they make D&D characters, it can be really hard not to just be yourself, wearing a new skin sort of thing. So I really tried to challenge myself with Willow Walker and make her a really obstinate, cranky character. She's not trying to get along with anyone. She's being kind of just an edgelord, and it's causing everyone else strife. But that kind of helps like push me out of my role-playing bubble, you know? Also, she's definitely just a marshmallow inside. This is Ruby Took who's an OC that we made up. Well, actually my wife made it up for one of her fics, her Lord of the Rings fics. I instantly fell in love with her. It's interesting because I was never much of an OC person, but since making the fic, because we needed auxiliary characters in the background, I now have a bunch of Lord of the Rings OCs. This comic I actually did a video about. I never did fill in the dialogue. There was supposed to be a previous page to it, which is where all the Posca drawings went, but I never got around to making that, and it was pretty much the only thing holding me back from having the sketchbook finished. So I just decided, screw it. Maybe someday I'll draw it, but chances are I won't. I gotta accept that, and so here I am instead. More or less the gist of it was supposed to be Minerva on her home planet as a kid, being like, hey, I've been having prophetic dreams about this thing, and then being like, oh my god, you're the chosen one. That was the gist. I do love that shiny though. Oh yeah. Drawing more Lord of the Rings characters, please. What? Your hand, Toril, ma'am. This was a page of doodles. Most of them I was doing during D&D sessions. These were more the ones from the spooky session. This is Sid, although I can't say I care for this design of him. He ended up technically picking up a familiar at one point that I kept forgetting I had, so it was a little pseudo-dragon, so I doodled that. This is Ilaria, one of my coworkers' characters. She's a drag queen, I believe. One of the other characters in our group was one of the bird sort of characters, and I didn't have a super clear vision of what she was supposed to look like, so I tried this out, showed it to the player, and she was like, no, I already have kind of a canon design for her, so I redrew her. This was a really cute person that I saw at the Glitterbean Cafe who was, I guess, texting someone they liked because they were being really cute and curling up in a chair and being adorable at it. This is more Madeline and Barclay plus Stern because OT3. There were some really fun headcanons in the Duck Nerva Discord that for sylphs, poly relationships are just normal. And so Barclay's family is very glad for him that he's gotten himself some partners, but they're also a little distressed that they're weird humans. Like, why did you pick the strange aliens, you strange boy? More doodles. I was getting a little bit crazy at this point, just playing with stuff. We got some Minervas, we got some mouths. I'm pretty happy with this one. I haven't done anything with it yet, but I might get around to that. This is another part of the comic from the beginning. There was like a little extra scene and a make that I wanted to put into it. Leo looks a little bit weird, but this was supposed to be a drawing because I ended up writing a fic about Taz Amnesty where the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles were sylphs, and Leo was telling a baby Jake about it. That is a real fic, it does exist, and I made it feelingsy somehow, so you can check that out if you want. These, I have plans eventually to clean up and turn into stickers. I was thinking about how the mountain chickadee, when it does its little bird call, it sounds like it's saying cheeseburger. I think that was a joke that the Trailer Park Boys made, but it's stuck in my brain forever, and so now when I hear it, I hear cheeseburger. This is once again more Lord of the Rings. The colors are weird in this one because I sketched it with a green colored pencil, then inked it, then put watercolors over top, so it kind of got this weird, strange green tint. These are some early shitposts from What Song, and probably some of my favorites. This one I meant as a joke, but then I drew it and I felt bad for Legolas. It's like, no baby, I'm sorry. These are B and my characters from our little D&D group with our close friends. This is Thimble, who's my character. So I was just kind of playing around with those characters, being very sketchy and just kind of slapping goofy stuff together. These two I have both done videos for, and they're probably the nicest things in the sketchbook, especially this boy is very tidy. It looks like an inserted page of something that was printed as opposed to something I did on the paper. Still very happy with Shiny Boy here. And this one I attached a little thing that I printed off from Tumblr, which was this adorable post about gay feelings, and I also have gay feelings. I think I'd love to have this as a print somewhere. It turned out real cute. Love me some big soft boys. And then this final page is some Lord of the Rings stuff. This is discolored because it's actually like on the back of the book. But these are more shitposts. Some of these have been posted, some haven't. These ones are mostly of Narvi and Celebrimbor, which are super minor characters from Lord of the Rings. Well, not from the Silmarillion, mostly. Celebrimbor kind of has like his own story plot thing. Anyway, point is, nobody was using these characters. I've taken control of them and rubbed my big gay hands all over them. Most of the designs that I've seen for Narvi before either have them as a lady, usually a redhead, or as a very grumpy man. And I was like, hey, what if neither of those things? And so I have a non-binary Narvi who's very soft-spoken and very like shy and kind of reclusive. I thought it'd be really funny, in contrast, if Celebrimbor was extremely tall, and much more outgoing and expressive and kind of a theater kid. A lot of the other people in his family are dark-haired. There's like 1 or 2 redheads and blondes as well, but I was like, what if silver hair though? Because his name means Silver Fist. Maybe because I grew up as anime trash. Anyway, point is, I love them both, they're baby, and these drawings will get cleaned up and posted at some point in the future. I just maybe didn't want to because what song reasons? Spoilers? Not really, I don't know. I just haven't done it yet. And that's it. That's the entire sketchbook. It's not very big, but it took me a really long time to put together because I wanted to fill up every possible space.
Thanks so much for watching this, guys. If you liked it, please let me know with a like or a comment or say hello on one of my other social media sites. I mostly hang out on Tumblr. I've got an Instagram as well, and B and I have a doll-specific Instagram in case that's your jam. Also, if you would like to stick around and see more of this kind of stuff in the future, please hit the Scooby Scooby-Doo. Feel free to hit the Stubby Scooby button, and I will see you in the next video. Okay, bye! Oh! Whoops.
No! I'm so sorry! So sorry.
I'm getting warm now that I'm sitting in the sun! Also, if you'd like to stick out. Whee! Oh no, it's happening again. They're doing the drilling. Don't do this to me. I'm begging you. Thanks so much for watching this, guys. If you liked it, please let me know with a like or a comment or something to that effect. I probably made little squishy noises with my feeties on the floor. Shouldn't have done that. Excuse you! Why are you so loud? Don't you be crushed by my butt. Cool! I did it.